Wow, there's a lot of you here already. All right, what's going on, everyone? How you doing? Man, that was quite a doozy getting this stream up right down to the wire there. It was like failing on me. I had to restart twice. Okay, so I got a few email requests regarding this. So cool this came along. There's this Comic-Con in Brussels, I believe, and Ian McDiarmid did a interview. I fast-forwarded it to about 17 minutes. I put the link to the actual video, so if you guys want to support his channel or check out the whole interview in general, which we might do in this video as well, I fast-forwarded to the questions at 17 minutes or around that, and this is where he actually talks about what was supposed to go down in The Rise of Skywalker and a scene that was actually cut. So without further ado, here we go.
In episode 9, and at one point I think it occurred to him he might come up to that part of the world to do a bit of filming, but his throne, wonderful throne based on the original Ralph McQuarrie design, looks as if it's made out of good, hard, black Scottish granite. It isn't. It's made out of polystyrene.
There's a point on set where you went up to him and I'm home, and everyone's like, oh, he's back on set, he's loving it, but you're like, I'm back in Scotland.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That was the poignancy personified.
Lovely. We want you guys to
Here we
ask
go.
questions, so if you have
Here we
a
go.
question, raise your hand.
First
We will
question.
Get out to you, don't be shy.
Hit that like
Want
button if you're
to-
here. There's about 2,400 of you here right now. Let's get it up.
Hello, and welcome to Belgium.
Thanks
Hi.
to the super chat, man. All right.
I was wondering about cloning the Emperor, because some of us were already familiar with that from some of the comics, but did you know that this idea existed, and how did you feel about it, and how did you incorporate it in playing the character?
Did I know what existed? Sorry.
The cloning thing that...
Oh, the cloning
yes.
thing. Yes. Well, of course, there were all sorts of explanations for why I might return. But it's interesting, there was, I think I can reveal something. At one point,
Here it
the
is.
script had the line in that first scene with Adam, when he says, "You're a clone." And I said in that original script, which is no longer with us, more than a clone, less than a man. Which seemed to me to sum him up, really, because we knew that, well, the camera has already snaked past the clone tank, in which there are various versions of Snoke, that you probably noticed. Spin it back and have a look. Well, you can't yet, can you? But you'll be able to once it's on Disney Plus, I think, not too far distant future. Yeah, so Snoke was a clone. He did. Palpatine was responsible for everything. He made everything in one way or another. And that's, talk about power early on. If you think back from, well, I'm sure you will, go back to watch them in the correct sequence, that's threaded throughout all of the movies, is this sense of evil. And in a sense, when everyone commits a bad act, it's because of this character's influence, either in public or pervasively in private, or apparently dead. So that's power.
Just on that point.
I just like that as a sitcom. That's Pam.
With that, because your character, obviously, they had to give a sense of what you've been doing in that time between.
Yes.
Did they give you a backstory that you had
Here it is.
there
Let's
but
go.
we didn't see?
It's so interesting, because neither JJ nor George Lucas have really concerned themselves with the backstory of this character. I didn't mind, because I could have my own ideas. And originally, when we were doing the makeup tests and so on, well, for a start, I had my own eyes. They were removed a little later. They were removed digitally in order to return with real contact lenses when I got back to the guy you saw at the end of Return of the Jedi. But in the original script, there was much more physical detail, pretty horrific physical detail, which I wasn't surprised sort of went as the scripts evolved.
Huh.
But I think, see, originally, JJ.
So there was a
felt
backstory.
that we had to explain you know, how he was physically treated when Vader chucked him down that shaft. And then after a while we thought, well, I don't think that needs to be over-explained. You'll see that terrible face, and you'll see he's in a contraption, some kind of support machine, a little advanced on the contemporary wheelchair. And that will probably say all we need to say. And the whole process of making a film, anyway, is about paring away, pulling back to what you really need to get to the essentials. So that was the progression. But as far as thinking what happened previously, that mind kept alive somehow. I don't know, you probably noticed a few tubes coming out of his body early on. And also he was able to be as commanding, obviously, as he had been, because look at that army.
Yeah.
You know, he made that. But the thing, and the most frustrating thing for him at the beginning of the movie, is he can't get back to his old self. He doesn't have complete physical control over his own body, and presumably not his fantastic power with his fingers. So his progress in the film is to get himself back to being, I won't use the word human, but emperor again, which eventually he does, as you know, through very complicated routes.
Very.
So you can see he was never actually the same Palpatine. He was a clone. He was more than a clone, less than a man, which means that they were using some sort of Sith alchemy or Sith magic or essence transfer from the Dark Empire comics. This is really cool, man. And he was never at full power. And this is, I mean, he just said it himself. He never had the ability to do Force lightning and everything. But my question still remains is that was he at full power once he, you know, absorbed the diet and the Force with Rey and Kylo? That's my question. We got a few super chats here, and then we'll continue with the video. I just want him to say who. Yeah, I don't know who Rey's grandmother was. Make a merch shirt, Palpatine 2020 with his face. Well, I can't use any of the actual Star Wars words, so. Beaumont Kin, Dominic Monaghan literally said cloning Sith magic in the Rise of Skywalker. They revealed Palpatine has returned. Yeah, I know, and no one really believed it. I didn't even believe it. I was just like, well, why do they kind of explain it like that? So we see that in the original script here, as he said, there obviously were many drafts of this script, many versions, and in the original one, there was a very detailed backstory, as he says, and he says that it was taken out, which it went into very great detail. And I wonder what this detail was. Why would they cut that out? Perhaps they're saving it for some other medium, comics, books, things like that. I'm going to talk more about this in detail tonight on the Rule of Two podcast around 5 PST, so be sure to be there for that. Regarding, let's watch a little more.
Very good answer. I'd like to think at some point in that period, though, there'd be a great episode of Grand Designs where he's building his lair.
Oh, there must be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kevin's in. The Emperor's got a infinite budget to build his evil lair.
Yes.
Check out this Scottish granite.
Yeah. Who had a question? Hands up. So many hands going up. We got 1, 2, 3. So yeah, if you guys, if there's any chance you can move forward, and we will get you in a second.
Hi.
Hi.
You have experienced so many generations making the Star Wars movies.
Sure.
Also different casts, of course. What is the biggest difference you experience? Is it in which area is it? Next to making the movie, of course.
Well, I suppose what's great is I've had the opportunity to work with so many great actors, you know, but in a contained way. I mean, it was just. It was Mark and me, Dave Prowse in the early days. And then when I was a senator and the chancellor, I got to meet lots of other actors and do scenes with them. And in the latest movie, my scenes are with Adam and with Daisy. Also, they were let into the secret. Well, of course they were, because I turned up, you know. At the last moment, but nobody else. And Anthony, who's around here, Daniels, didn't know.
Yeah, that's my question too. Is like, how does he absorb? Like, so okay, so obviously I don't even think he knew that they had a diet in the Force, and I think once he absorbed it, he was so surprised and shocked. No pun intended. That's a mistake. And you could see in the movie he was just like, oh. And then all of a sudden he started to regrow, but still that body was more than a clone, less than a man. So was he more powerful or not? Like, I still think that if this was Palpatine in his original body, then it would have been a different story. The fact that they brought him back as a clone, it just goes to show how powerful he was and that he truly did learn how to cheat death, because it's right there, and this is from the Plagueis novels, this is from the comics, the Legends comics, Dark Horse. It shows you that he knew that power and he eventually learned it, but he never taught it to Vader. However, Vader didn't need to know it because he then became a Force ghost, and Sith don't have that power. I mean, a few of the old ones from the Old Republic did, but they were kind of bound to objects and tombs and things like that. So, this is pretty cool, man. The way Ian is sitting makes him look extra tiny. That's just the camera angle, I think, and the sofa. How would he absorb life essence if not powerful? I think he was still powerful mentally, right? He was more powerful than he was ever before mentally, but his body couldn't, right? It's like you have a super powerful engine in a car that can't handle the turns. The chassis will break. It's right. Paradise Prod says, you were on Showbiz Cheat Sheet. Congratulations. Love your channel and your commitment to the Star Wars community. Thanks, dude. I don't know what that is. What's Showbiz Cheat Sheet? Wolfsbane says, theory, if you stream FNC later, I have a theory that I believe. Yes, so on the gaming channel after this, I'm going to be streaming the Old Republic, as we have been doing for the last few days now, and continuing the episodes. I believe he fixes the sequels as a whole and keeps Anakin's legacy intact. I'd love if you read it. Love you, Theory, your content, and always love seeing Ian McDiarmid interviews. I really want to get Ian McDiarmid on the Rule of Two podcast. I'm really gunning for that. I got to meet him at Star Wars Celebration, and from the brief interaction, very nice man. And I asked him, you may have seen this video, I asked him, like, can I ask you a question? He's like, sure. I'm like, do you think Palpatine threw the fight between Mace? And he pauses, and he's like, yes. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he's just saying that, as himself, wanting Palpatine to be, the best. But I truly believe, even though George has said that Mace won, I feel like George says some things sometimes to just kind of like mess with the fans a little bit. Like the whole Obi-Wan is from the planet Stu-Jon. He said that on the Jon Stewart show. Made up a planet right there and is now canon. So I mean, I don't know, man. I think Ian knows some stuff behind the scenes, and probably when he was practicing for those scenes or rehearsals or whatever, he asked George, so like, am I throwing the fight, or like, what's really going on? So that's always something that's interested me, and I'm glad he at least gave me an answer. Do you think the accelerated growth took part in the cloning process? Keep up the amazing work. That's an interesting theory as well, DJ. It could have been, but I mean, we know that Boba didn't have accelerated cloning, so he obviously had that option to even maybe decelerate cloning. Let's go ahead and listen a little further.
When we were out in Chicago at the anniversary of the first movie, I mean Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Anthony said that he was, well, actually, no, to go back a little further, the trailer came on. There was my laugh, which was a previous recording, and then they thought it would be a good idea if I just appeared on stage and said, roll it again, which I did. And the only two actors who were not surprised by that, were Adam and Daisy. All of the other actors didn't know that Mr. Evil had come back. I don't know how they managed to keep it from them. But Anthony said, we knew there was a new bad guy. We didn't know it was an old one. Which was, nice to say. But it was great that they didn't. So, and apparently you can look back on that, you see their jaws drop when I come back onto the stage. And then, of course, we all went sort of quiet, and I got a bit coy in interviews and so on, because no one knew whether I was going to be a little not or a little, or whether I was just some kind of hologram or so on. And so the mystery went on. But it was, of course, it was great working with Adam and Daisy, two wonderful actors, and with completely different approaches, both entirely valid, but with marvelous concentration. And then the first scenes I did were actually consecutive in order, because the first scene of the movie was with Adam, and I've never seen concentration like that in another actor. I mean, I know I'm supposed to be scary, but those eyes staring at you at the other side of the camera is, you know, an inspiration.
He's an ex-Marine as well, isn't he?
He's what?
I think he's an ex-Marine.
He is an ex-Marine, yes.
So that added layer of discipline as well.
Absolutely, and there's one scene, I'm sure he had many others. I mean, look at those fights, all of which are him. When I had to merely flick my fingers and throw him into the air, which I enjoyed doing immensely. All I have to stand there and hardly do anything, and of course, as you know, they add everything later. So I was just doing, it was very sort of casual, something like that,
Did you
many
have a
times.
choreographer for
and they
that,
thought,
or a
I said she could have the day off. But then he was wire, he was on a big harness and wire, and every time I did that, they shot him into the air, and he's almost bounced off the big screen at the back many, many times, because you know that's what we have to do. And he came in the next day, and I said, how are you after that? He went, well, you know, bruises, but I'm a Marine.
On that, when you say the wire work and stuff, one of the things that this trilogy did, they went back to a lot of practical effects. How has the practical effects evolved from the first trilogy to how they do them now? Is it similar, or is it?
Yes. Well, again, there are so many talented people involved, and they have also their talents have evolved over the years. So the most interesting thing, which was entirely alive, was the machine I was on. Now, I suppose you could have just had me against a lot of blue screen.
That machine was called the Omen apparatus, or Omen machine or something?
We tested this machine, first of all, to see that I wouldn't fall off it, or that it would kill me. And we had two different ones to begin with. One where I would have had to do everything on my knees. I mean, very carefully protected, but we all got a little bit worried about that. So they settled for one where I am completely erect the whole time and entirely strapped in. There were 4 people behind me moving the machine. Then there was a health and safety guy in front. I couldn't have been better looked after. But I really did swing around that huge set.
Omen harness.
How big's the machine? How high?
Now, Omen was a Sith Lord.
It's a little bit, a bit higher than me.
Oh,
I stood on this tiny platform with my feet, and then everything else was strapped in. So I had freedom obviously to move my head and my arms, but that was it. And that was helpful, because, you know, he wouldn't have freedom to move anything else. So it was that very good contributory factor to the sense of the character. But I've always wanted to fly. I mean, who doesn't? But I've always wanted to fly in a harness, or preferably on stage. But maybe that'll happen one day. But these guys can manipulate me up, down, sideways, any which way, and fast. And I don't have vertigo. In fact, I rather enjoyed that. So that was a relief to them all. But they said, you know, anytime you've got a problem, just raise your hand, you know, and we'll lower you down. But I didn't. But it did, it scared Daisy to begin with.
Oh!
She thought, you can't do this to him. But that also gave me more power, you know. It's like, and of course I had nothing to do with the manipulation. But it was great to zoom up in. You can't quite see that in the movie, but there was a lot of zooming around.
I just read something cool from the Rise of Skywalker novelization, so I'll probably make a video on that tomorrow. A lot of really cool stuff. That's it for this video. Now I can talk to you guys and answer some questions, answer some super chats, and then I'm gonna go stream on the gaming channel. Please find the link down below. Throw a like on this video if you enjoyed it. There's almost 3,200 of you here now, so let's continue on with this. Crazy how you can hear Palpatine as he talks. Yeah, I love you theory question. Are you wearing any pants? Yes, I am. Idea for a video. What if Obi-Wan had gone after Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith and Yoda had gone after Anakin as Obi-Wan wanted? Love your channel. That'd be a cool fanfic. I think I did that fanfiction, actually. Got to love how they fixed the movie in the books. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate they do that, but I mean, it's, you know, it is what it is.
We've got a couple of minutes.
Oh, yes.
So, should we try and get a couple of these?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry, I can't do
that.
Some more. Cut me off.
Yeah.
Yep, here we go.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, Palpatine has so many amazing scenes, and I was wondering which one was your personal favorite, character-wise.
Yes. Gentleman Last Wish is my favourite scene. I suppose it still goes back to Revenge of the Sith and the scene in the Opera House with Anakin, where he finally nails it, as it were. he faces him with the possibility of Padme's death, but also the possibility of naked power, and he falls for it. And it was terrific to do that scene with Hayden. I've talked about it a lot. We did it at the end of the day one Friday in Australia, just suddenly, which made it. I said it was a bit scary because we just went into it without any kind of rehearsal, but it meant that it was entirely fresh. And also I think it's probably the longest dialogue scene, certainly the longest dialogue scene I had in the history of the movies, because you usually zoom on to the next action sequence. So it was satisfying from that point of view. But as far as the most recent film is concerned, I suppose when I got them both in front of me, both Kylo and my granddaughter, that was a great day. Because that's the day when Palpatine realizes that he somehow has to get the power of both of them. But then realizes that all he needs really is to persuade, it's a terrific notion, it's a terrible notion, his granddaughter to hate him absolutely and to want to kill him more than anything in the world in order to reincarnate as the Empress, the most evil Sith that could ever rule the universe worse than me. That's a marvelously sick idea.
There we go. That confirms yesterday's theory.
The day we moved
Nice.
towards that, and that was over a few days, frankly, that was very satisfying.
It'd be an interesting Christmas for that family.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
My question for you was, what is your favorite personal quote from the Emperor?
There are a few of them, as you'd imagine.
Do it.
I like two from the recent movie. Everybody knows about "Do It," and and that certain number that he commands to be done. That means the slaughter of the innocents. But in the recent movie, I like the first thing I said, which in the original script was not the first thing I said, but it's just the two word "at last." In other words, I can get back and do all the terrible things, and now the army's bigger, and implying that Kyle is a pushover, which of course is not, and so on. And the other quote from the movie that I think I like is, "I have died before."
So
Nice to be able to say that in real life.
As a comedian, Matt and I have said that many a time.
Yeah,
Really? Yes, I know. Well,
we've died on stage.
Yeah,
so
as a stage actor, never mind stand up. Yeah. I no doubt will again. I should have added, yes.
Do you ever mess with people and slip into the voice? Like if you're at a restaurant, they go, "How are you paying?" You go, "Backhand."
No, because they would think I was completely insane. If I put the hood over my head, some of them might get it.
Also, I just flick your finger and then disappear out the door.
I could guess.
Okay, we're going to take, if we've got time.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
There's this theory on the internet about.
Oh, is there a theory on the internet?
Theory. What?
Not a conspiracy theory, I hope.
Over the last 5 years, got bigger and bigger about Jar Jar Binks. What are your thoughts about?
Oh, yeah.
Jar Jar might be a
Jar Jar Binks. Well, we had a very nice time, Jar Jar and I, Ahmed, Best and I, when we were celebrating, indeed we were, the first movie, The Phantom Menace. And he's a great guy, as many of you who have seen his stuff and know him will know. And there was a very moving moment when we were invited on stage with Anthony Daniels, myself. Warwick Davis was in the chair, being witty and really interesting and intelligent as always. And when he introduced Ahmed as Jar Jar, the place erupted and wouldn't stop going Jar Jar, Jar Jar. So I think he felt that after all of those years of being not him personally, but the character being universally rejected, he got a little bit of warmth again. And these, of course, were people who, most of whom, I think, were seeing that film in its proper context. They hadn't been through, those of us of the generation who started on episode 4, 5, and 6 and had to go backwards. And they found him interesting, refreshing, and dare I say, even funny. Ahmed, of course, is all of these things. My only regret was that because he wasn't himself, that was the whole point, he couldn't really recreate his comic genius through the terms of that particular digital character.
There's always life on Disney Plus, though. The Jar Jar spin-off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, exactly. I mean, what doesn't have a spin-off?
Yeah.
Yeah, get him in Palpy.
I know.
Yeah. Jar Jar and Palpy, that would be the...
Yes. I'd pay for that, actually. I'd buy a subscription for that.
Imagine a show like that. It'd be pretty good.
I hope they're listening.
We've been told, unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up. Obviously, there are tons of you, but Ian's here all weekend, so please go and join that.
Well, I guess that's it. Dude, this was a great oh crap, I died. Great interview on his part, because it just like falls in line with literally everything that's been going on the last few days. I'm really happy that my source, Damien Dennis, brought this to my attention. He sent me a lot more screenshots from the book. Unfortunately, I didn't get a copy of it, but he got to go to the Comic-Con, and he got a copy of it, which is pretty sweet. So there's tons of stuff, and I'm like reading some of it now, and there's actually Plagueis in this. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Stay tuned for the videos coming this week. Stay tuned for the podcast coming tonight in about 2.5 hours at 5 p.m. PST. Throw a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Thank you everyone for the super chats and for joining me in today's video. Head over to the gaming channel. I'm going to stream for you guys right now, and we're going to have some fun. If you do play Star Wars The Old Republic, join up. I made a guild, and there's like literally like just tens and dozens of us in there that are just roaming around fighting crime. All right, guys. Thanks, and see you in a little bit. May the Force be with you.